I just pressed record, so we're on. It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I just heard. I was listening to a Joe Rogan podcast, and he was talking about Twitter. Said it's a lunatic asylum where a bunch of monkeys are throwing shit at each other, and I think that sums it up pretty good.
Word.
So how's Seattle today?
Seattle.
Yeah,
As we don't have the mist. Normally we have the like Seattle mist. That's a thing that we do, but
yeah.
we're just gray. We're gray. I'm doing like some sweater on sweater action over here today.
Okay, okay.
It's where you do like a sweater with a vest and another thing. It's bananas, but we're good.
Yeah, that cold wet. So you went from, 'cause I know you went to school in Arizona, and you went from Arizona to the driest place in the city, or the driest place in America, to the I don't want to say the damp capital of the world, but it is just always raining up there, isn't it? It's beautiful.
Pacific Northwest. That's what we call it.
Ah, there you go.
Yeah. I mean, it is, right? And I grew up in Chicago, so like, I just did extreme weather, right?
You
Like
went all over the
extreme
place.
cold, right? Like tundra, and then desert, and now here up near the. I mean, we've got actual rainforest here, so yeah.
Now, have you ever been to Texas?
I have been to Texas. I've been to South by Southwest, so I've been to
Oh, in
Austin a
Austin.
bunch of
Okay.
times. Yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. All right. Yeah, Austin is like it's our little. Uh, I don't know. It's the most atypical city in Texas, but it's the most fun place to go on a special weekend, or if you want to go see some good music, that's the place to go.
We ate great food too. That was
Yeah,
like I loved that part.
yeah, yeah. We're there's two types of food here. There's Mexican, and then there's whatever you eat when you run out of Mexican. That's all we eat here. That's it. It's great food here. Well, I guess there's barbecue. We got good barbecue here. So,
Yeah.
all right. So I'm reading about just some of the stuff that you've done and all that. Now, I wanted to start just with some real basic stuff because and I think I told you that I texted you this last night. I was like, I got the title for our episode. It's going to be Side Hustling with Jen Hope.
Yeah.
And I thought about that because we talked a little bit about side hustles. It seems like that's the norm more than the exception now. And then looking at what you're doing, you have two or three balls in the air right now, and it looks like you've pretty much always operated that way. Is that is that how you find energy? Is that how you like to operate?
For sure. For sure. And I think there's like I have a little bit of that multi passionate thing going on, and um a little bit of attention going a few different places, and certainly I think really interacting with people. I think that's probably the common thread. I think at one point I was in marketing, so I was probably a little bit more profit focused at one point,
Right.
but definitely more people focused um, as my orientation. And all of those things are people focused, right? I was teaching group
Yeah.
fitness, right?
Yeah.
Really human, um, and ways that I think my energy can have impact. And I never wanted that role. I think I was like encouraged there, like you can do this, therefore you should. And I was hesitant to step into leading group fitness and leading teams, and I think I was definitely encouraged that direction.
Well, you're a natural coach. What you say? I mean, it kind of
I
seems to
think
be a common
so.
denominator. What pushed you to get into your own thing and start being an executive coach?
There's a little bit of timing. I think there was this moment where I was seeing what was happening in startup companies and watching um, a little bit of this movement take place. Like this is like 10, 11 years ago. People had started talking about mental health,
Yeah.
and a lot of startup. I saw VCs. This gentleman by the name of Brad Feld, who was involved in some of the companies that I was involved in, talking about depression, talking about burnout, talking about some of these things. And I was watching folks around me in startup companies underwater in a lot of ways,
Yeah.
really facing burnout and a lot of elements. And I was motivated to support and to I had been inside of those companies and knew what some of the how the goals were moved forward, and we
Yeah.
thought we were there's it's just intense. It's intense. Startup companies were always intense, and having had that experience and also having a passion for people, I think really intersected. And then one of the companies I was working for, when I finally made the leap to do this full time, the company I was working for was acquired, and I knew that I was not about to jump into the corporate company that we were acquired by. And here we had what was once a side hustle, and now I've been doing this full time for 8 years.
Wow. Yeah. a lot of people, I think, during COVID got that final nudge to allow them to be entrepreneurs, whether it came by a lockdown or a furlough or whatever happened the case. Sometimes you need that to get kicked out of the nest to start what you really want to do. Do you remember
Yeah.
your first client?
I remember my first paying client for sure. Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's the one that counts. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I
Ha-
do. I
That's
do.
that's the hardest thing to do is to the generate your sales, generate your actual income stream when you're an entrepreneur. I did it for a while. I loved it. I hated trying to find the next gig. It was enough to drive me
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah, it's why I got really focused on systems in my own business, right? As a marketer,
Hmm.
I knew that there were systems. I knew that I had to find levers to pull. And so for similar, I felt like I was kind of chasing, right? And that was never, particularly as a coach, it didn't that was not the way I wanted to show up. And so I really was I started trying to focus on systems. Like how do I build the systems into the business? How do I build the systems into marketing where there's ongoing conversation, things that work without, my hands on it or me knocking on doors.
So, well, tell me more about that. So, like, if you go into a client now, are you doing a gap assessment, or how are you finding out what systems need to be initiated, and how do you find the right remedy?
Yeah, so for it really depends on the size of the company, right? So if I'm working with what I would call, kind of micro business, mom and pop, that kind of thing, versus startup organizations where we're looking at like what is our budget and then what is our team built for.
Hmm.
Those are the things that I'm considering, right? If I'm sitting in front of an entrepreneur who is, highly introverted, then I'm going to start wondering what are the technology opportunities that we have to put in place, right? That it isn't this person who's constantly out in front driving awareness, driving some of those elements. So, I do tiny bits of business coaching these days and a lot more leadership coaching, but when I do have folks in front of me, it's asking about the strengths of the people who are running some of those elements and the talents and the ways that one of the questions I ask entrepreneurs most frequently are folks who are in that kind of growth responsibility mode is like what is the marketing that you're going to do. Like what's the one that's the least painful for you, right? If getting up and sitting in front of a microphone every day and creating content is your jam, then like we're all media creators. We all have a job to create some form of media, and that's our role in marketing, right? We are
Right.
media companies. And so the question I ask for most folks is like which is the one that you're going to do? Which is the least brutal of them all?
And then just you try to strengthen them in that particular competency. Is that
I
what you
hope
do?
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the path we had. Yeah.
Now, what do you think makes for a good coach coming into an organization?
I think there's a couple things. So like one is a little bit of inspiration
Okay.
where like being able to see the possibilities, right? So I think part of my bias is that I have hopefulness
Okay.
and I think I have a little bit of that like kind of optimistic nature, and then I'm very realistic in execution. And so I think balancing those two for seeing what the possibilities are, and then also being able to see some of the practicality of the limitations of those ideas. And so like kind of balancing those two. So for individuals, right? If I'm going to work with an individual, if I'm going to work with a team, having hopefully a realistic expectation and then some practicality like I love to read, personal development, but if I can't see how it really breaks down into the day to day, like all the way to the micro habit of what we
Mm-hmm.
say and what we don't say to one another, I can't really get that fired up about it. But if I can see like all the way into behavior, the way that we're talking to one another day to day and the words that we use, then I can see how we can make change.
So, are you now? And I know that we talked briefly. You use a couple tools that you find pretty helpful in
I
finding those
do.
things out and defining those. What are your go tos?
So I use DISC as like my first step.
Yep,
And
love
then I
disc.
use Leadership Circle. Yeah, Leadership Circle and the Leadership Circle team assessments and what they call collective assessments for helping to get to some of that data.
So you're doing that when you're working with a team. How about, or do you do that? Do you work with
Both.
individuals as well?
Yeah.
Just okay.
Yeah.
And when you're trying to figure out, well, there's not a PC to wait. say this. Are you brought in to develop people when there's a problem, or are you there to develop people because they want this person to get some advanced coaching for that next step, or are you coming in to fix something?
I don't love the idea of being set up to fix anyone personally.
Yeah,
That's not my jam, right? Like,
yeah,
I think every single one of us has growth areas. And, like, even when you say that, like, makes my heart hurt a little bit.
mm,
Like, fix this person, right? Like, ooh. So that will never be probably a good fit for me. Now, do we have folks who maybe haven't had the investment from the folks around them to know what's holding them back? Like, what are, we don't always have like those mirrors that help us see what's in our way, right? We don't know the way our behavior is impacting other folks. We don't know because we haven't had the luxury of getting that information. And
yeah.
so I think there are places where we can say, like, hey, this person doesn't see it yet. How can we gently hold up the mirror that helps them see, that could help unlock some of their like absolute potential?
I guess I'm glad you said that actually about maybe fixing people, but having been in HR a long time, I've seen it. It's like you outsource um, the responsibility of a manager. You outsource it. You go, well, you know what? We'll bring a coach in to work with them
Yeah.
because and sometimes it's done as even as a punishment. Somebody's done something or whatever, and you've got to check the box, and you got to say, okay, well, we're going to bring in a communications coach because you obviously don't know how to communicate to people. And we're going to bring them in here, and they're going to do that. We're going to put that plan of action in your file, so we check that box too. I mean, corporate America has got plenty of those examples. Um, when you have you ever even been asked? Do you know when people are trying to float that kind of bullshit assignment by you?
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
For sure. I've taken it.
yeah,
I've taken it.
yeah.
Well, here's why. Because in my eyes, there's a bigger picture, and like, this person, what else is happening, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
go into that and I'm like, this may be the dynamic at the moment for this individual, right? Like, we may have like a role issue, we may have like a dynamic issue, right, between this person and their manager, or like, I think that it's complex. And so I'm going into that, and I've been there, and I want to go in with curiosity. And maybe that's like naive on my part and overly optimistic on my part. Because in my mind, like, if we can equip this person with a little bit more information, there is an opportunity in there, and maybe this person's being managed out, right? And that's part of this
Mm-hmm.
process. And to me, the gift that I can give this person is some more self-awareness and some more skills and some more tools that they may not be able to use in this role, but
You
that
could help
equips them and
down.
sets them up, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I mean, well, that's good. I mean, you're helping them. It's not situation specific. You're helping the person, whether it's for that particular situation somebody hired you for, but long term, it's going to be good for them anyway.
Don't you hope? I
Yeah, you
hope.
do. I do. I do. How well when you're coming in, it's like if let's say I hire you to come in to work with my number two. I want her to be developed in these areas and these areas. So she didn't pick you. I picked you. So
Yeah.
you have people who are a suspect with you, and how do you kind of instantly build up some sort of trust between the two of you and build up your credibility?
I think it takes time. I mean,
Mm.
I don't have like a magic bullet. I mean, I do have a lot of awareness. I mean, then one of the first things I do is use a tool like DISC, so I know the person who's in front of me, and I know how to communicate with them. Like, I come in, my DISC profile, like, I have high
You,
I
I
as
was gonna say you got to be I.
right. So my one of my most visible traits is high I, right? And so I'm extroverted, and I know if I'm going to come in the room and I am all extrovert at this person, I'm going to shut them down, right? And I'm going to know that I need to use logic, and I'm going to know that I need to, speak their language. And if I'm working with someone who is above the line dominance, below the line dominance, like, I build that into the way that I'm going to show up in that session to create, some space for the person who's in front of me. So am I just aware, like I would be in any other conversation, to the best of my ability with folks? Like, I want to build awareness about what works for this individual. So that's where I start.
Yeah, and I always take this for granted, but for people who don't know DISC, it's DISC. It's a tool used for communication styles more than anything. I believe is how I always used it, and decision making, kind of your style, and whether you value tasks more or people more. And I love it. I've always found it to be real helpful with teams, my own teams, to try to communicate better. And we would get like one of the companies I was with, you get this huge circle chart, with, and everybody can put where they landed on it, and you can see that, and it happens every time. People kind of go, "Oh, that explains it. That explains why so and so is that way," and it's really a helpful tool. So I could see that helping a great deal because if you go in making all these sudden movements, and it's a real high C analytical person, yeah, you're gonna scare the hell out of them.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny. I'm thinking of a client of mine who, if you know anything about disc, is like very above the line dominance, which is like very fast paced, right? Like
Right.
very like we gotta, and I have a practice in my practice where we slow down to start the session. So I do like some breathing exercises and take folks through like a little bit of mindfulness before we begin, just so we can be present. And I'm very aware in those times that this person is like, come on, like, can we get this thing started already? And it's a little bit of, we have to like, there's folks who are like all in for something like that, and then there's those folks who I'm maybe teaching them a little bit about what it's like to slow down. So yeah.
Dragging them through it as they're going, I've been breathing by myself for 50 years. I don't need you to teach me how to breathe today. But no, I know. Sometimes it's what we learn a lot by those awkward moments. Sometimes we get pushed out of our comfort zone and the rest of it. So, are you still seeing and addressing a lot of the same things that you initially saw when you got into coaching with burnout and things like that? Are you seeing it more?
Absolutely.
Is it even more prevalent now
I
with
just had a
COVID?
conversation. Yeah, I had just had a conversation about this, that like I end up talking about mental health every day, if not every session every day. Just because it's just where we are. I don't know if you're seeing, I don't know if you see this too, that there's it's just what we talk about.
Well, you know what? At least you're talking to them about it because I think that's one of the scary things is anything you read, any of the research you get, people have pointed out how much harder and the prevalence of mental health and I mean extremes too, suicides and alcoholism and drug abuse and domestic abuse. I mean, people were trapped in their homes. There's all kinds of stuff going on, and you might not even know because a lot of the companies our employees are remote. We don't see them very often, and if you don't have somebody like a coach, somebody like you that's calling you to check in with your mental well-being or your mental health, however you want to phrase it, there's a lot of stuff going out there undiagnosed right now. It's
Yeah.
I had a guest this a couple of months ago too, and she was a sleep scientist. And it was fascinating. Sarah Moe is her name, and she was talking about how our sleep patterns have gotten even worse since we've gone, which just exacerbates the mental aspect of ourselves because we're not well rested either, and that is such a pandemic on top of this pandemic. So I would think there's no lack of people in need of what you and others are doing right now. Is that, I mean, are you finding that your business is thriving because of some of this?
It is. I mean, and I don't love even speaking that into existence, right? Because that tells me
I
that people
know.
are
I
hurting, right?
promise I'm not really a capitalist
Yeah.
pig. It's just it. I mean,
Yeah.
I was starting to get a complex. I get LinkedIn requests from 2 or 3 burnout coaches like a week now. It's like, hey, like, is something about my profile pic make it look like I'm, am I gritting my teeth? I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's pretty prevalent.
Yeah, it is. And it is, I mean, I think folks, and I'm going to say this, I'll be real candid about it. I think for some folks we are a little bit more comfortable to talk to a coach because of the forward looking nature of what coaching is. And sometimes I think it can be, a little bit a little bit more comfortable while still being uncomfortable than maybe like engaging a therapist, right? And
Mm,
someone who is going to take us into truly looking at what is happening with our mental well-being, what's happening with, big T, little T trauma, and even, our past, right? And I think for some folks, coaching is the right step, right? Coaching is the right step for that forward looking. That is the right step for, I really would like to, develop a skill set, right? And that is the right step, right? Like therapy maybe is another resource and it's another support system. And I think for some folks, it really is a forward looking step that says, hey, I would really like to build this out. And I think I'm hearing more and more often folks come to me saying, I'd like to have more empathy. I'd like to feel more resourced. And
mm,
some of that is like, what are some ideas? Like, Jen, what are your ideas for how I can do that? How do I get more capacity and to
wow.
handle the complexity of, my own experience as a parent, as a leader, as a manager, as a great boss, and just as a human, right?
Yeah. Well, that tells me that they're feeling some of what you're seeing. They're feeling that from their people too, and they want to be better equipped to, I guess, address that. That that's encouraging. That's at least people who are seeing it and they're wanting to wanting to do it because it's very hard. I know we have a company of roughly say 500 people, and I see on a regular basis about eight. There's everybody's remote, and so you do have to pick up a lot from the phone calls, and you have to listen very. And people are also in this bad habit now. We've been on Zoom so long that a lot of people just black out their box. You're talking to a lot of black boxes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a scary thing too, because you can really get a beat on people when you're looking at them. So I don't know. It's a weird time. There's going to be some residual effect here that we don't see now. It'll end up hitting us at some point because it really is a pretty peculiar time now. What do you think is you just brought up a real interesting scenario with somebody saying, "Hey, how do I get more capacity?" I guess to be like empathetic, to be somebody to be a coach for their people. Is that kind of what
Mm-hmm.
you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Does everybody have that capacity to do that? Are you able to? I mean, there are some people. I think you're probably a natural born communicator. You can connect. Some people aren't like that. Does that? How do you help that person?
Yeah, I think what I've noticed is when folks find capacity and empathy for themselves, that's sometimes an unlocking
Hmm.
factor. Like
Hmm.
I say this a lot with clients where like kindness in is the our capacity for kindness out. And so I do so much of this work around the way that we talk to ourselves, the way that we are interacting, like in here in our dome, and how,
Man, that's
I
yeah.
have this I have this I had this coach at one point who was really specialized in Buddhism and self-kindness and like really deep. And she presented this idea to me that she threw her arms around herself in the morning and be like, "Good morning, honey. I love you so much. I hope you have the best day." And my mind was blown. Like, what are you even talking about? Right?
Right.
Like
Right.
this like can you imagine? Like would you I don't know if you do
Me?
that.
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't do that. I'm not a hugger by nature. I'm not, so myself included. But you know what? I bet works for her because I know that my inner voice is a real prick to myself sometimes. So you know,
And so that's where that's sometimes my kind of angle in is to get folks kind of a little more clear even what it sounds like in their own head.
yeah.
And when we can do that and I can get a sense of what folks are thinking and give me a sense of like, what does that thought look like? You're in this meeting and this thing happens. And are we also self critical? Because then we can get a sense of what does it sound like to be self critical? When then what does it sound like to be critical on the outside? And yeah, that's why I use tools too, because it kind of takes it outside of us to say, oh, this is just our default setting. And that's okay. It's also a great strength,
Yeah.
right? To be more, so logical and so analytical and some of these things that are also amazing, amazing skills and gifts.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was just thinking of this. Some of the conversations you're having, and we're kind of having, this sounds like the kind of conversations that therapists might have. It sounds like some counseling and those things. And I know you have like a marketing background, a marketing degree, right? I was a
Yeah.
political science. That was my degree, political science, which God knows that's not deep enough to be having these conversations. But you learn just by experience of what you've seen. But I mean, do you get into conversations sometimes that are out of your realm that seem like, hey, I might want to get this person some professional guidance as well, that clinically?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I refer to therapists. I refer to therapists who can refer people to psychiatrists based on their areas of specialty, like for sure. I refer folks out a lot. I have a few tools, like I have a mindfulness and anxiety workbook that I sometimes
Mm-hmm.
will send folks to as just like an entry point to like, what do we even, what is anxiety, right? Like we don't really know. We sometimes maybe know what it feels like in our body, but we haven't been exposed to like, what does anxiety feel like? Or what is when we're in sadness? Like, is it, are we talking weeks? Are we talking months? Like,
Hmm.
when do we go refer out? So knowing my scope of practice is critical for me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And to be able to say like, we can talk about it. I'm not diagnosing. I'm not bringing people any information that is outside of what coaching is and that scope of practice. And also I really try to be unafraid to let someone bring their mental health experience, right, their mental well-being experience to that room, because where else are they going to bring it? Either they're going to bring it, you know they're going to bring it to their job because it goes
Yeah.
with them, right?
Mm-hmm.
And let's allow it to at least be in the room and not be like a taboo.
It, I, it's so. I know there's not a lot of people who are even afforded the opportunity sometimes to have somebody from the outside come and help them and do all that. Sometimes it's incumbent upon us as individuals to find help. And I know I was doing a little bit of my due diligence on you, and you had made a special point on highlighting a few of your mentors over
Yeah.
the years. Now, did you actively seek people to be a mentor? And how, and would you recommend that to other people? How would you recommend they find somebody to be a mentor?
Yeah, there's a couple of elements, right? We are not always in a position to have a mentor, right? So that's like a privilege
Yeah.
to be in a position to seek that. So yes, if that is a position that you can, that that you are lucky enough and privileged enough to have, then yes, seek mentorship. um some of it is like also being proactive and seeking the education that moves you further, right? So a little bit it is exposing ourselves, right? And then having that reinforced by someone like great bosses, the opportunity for mentorship for sure. Seeking and taking the opportunities when they're presented, I guess, is what I would encourage folks to do. Seek them,
Yeah.
to be proactive in your experience, and then also accepting them when they arrive.
Well, and I know that you play a role as a mentor now as well, right? And I know what is it? I wanted to ask you about this first round fast track.
First round fast track, yeah.
Yeah, tell me about that because that sounds pretty cool.
So first round capital is a venture fund, and they provide mentorship for folks in their companies. And so I am a mentor through that program, and I have a mentee. I've had a couple of them actually, and I get to mentor new leaders, emerging leaders, folks who are set up for leadership. And I have like, it's the coolest situation for me because I get to work with a lot of marketing folks
Yeah.
and folks who are building careers that I have kind of also gotten to build myself. And so it is an honor, and I also get to bring all of this like awesome coaching knowledge that I've gathered to really talented marketing folks too. So it's amazing. It's like one of my
Is
favorite
this
things.
for? Is this strictly for startups? Is that what it's targeted
Yeah, so
to?
they're
Okay,
yeah, it's a startup. They're primarily startup companies at various stages of growth.
that's pretty cool. And as far as your involvement there, are you also still involved in Orca? Is that Orca HR? Are you still doing that too?
A little bit, yeah. So I
Yeah.
still work on some what I would call like larger HR consulting projects. So side
Okay.
hustling a little bit there
Yeah. Yeah.
to work with them. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking at it. I was like, and so And you said that right now you're unable to be the coach at Orange. What is it? Orange Fitness,
Orange
Orange Theory,
Theory.
Orange
Oh
Theory.
yeah. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, that had to be tough though, because big part of I know for me, a big part of my mental health is always being physically active and having that. So, are you still able to find outlets for that for yourself?
I am. I think it's not the same as having here in Seattle, we have a lot of closures of some of those fitness areas, and we have a lot of mask mandates and things like that. And so, and not that I'm not against that. I'm just suggesting that it creates a little bit of barrier to exercise, and I miss it. So I coached Orange Theory for 3.5 years, and I've been teaching group fitness for 20 years. And this is maybe like kind of second, maybe fourth year total in the last 20 years that I haven't been coaching somewhere, some level of group fitness.
It's
Yeah.
kind of weird.
So it is
Kind of
weird.
weird.
It
Yeah.
it is weird, and I think the most surprising thing about it is that I would get so much energy and also expend so much energy that I'm still unsure where to have that exchange take place, because you interact with 200 people in a day, which is what I was doing when I was doing group fitness coaching. And
Oh
so
wow.
yeah, you interact with 200 people, you have an impact somehow, whether from my music or from the words that I said on a microphone, or the way that I gave them an elbow bump, or whatever it was, and really tried to impact their day and create an experience for them to be a part of, and to even just to have a home where someone gets to show up and have somebody say hello when they walk in the door, right? Like this kind of third place, fourth place, whatever it might be for them.
Yeah.
And I felt like I was hosting these people in an experience, and that I miss that part. I miss hosting 200 people for a group fitness experience.
That's insane. I didn't realize. I mean, I guess I didn't realize. I'm thinking, like a cycling class or something, like 20 people. I didn't realize it was like that. That's crazy, man.
We had 45 people every class. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or in somewhere around there. Yeah.
That's pretty cool. Now, why? Because I know that. I mean, it's not like you're an old person. You can't be. You're a young person still. How do you have all this experience to offer with startups, and you're involved in these programs that? I mean, take a lot of. You have to have your bones that you've earned there. How have you been lucky enough to build some of these experiences so quickly? I don't want to say lucky. Lucky's a bad word. Fortunate, maybe.
Fortunate. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I do think there's like some kind of grace of God. I ended up in Seattle, and I worked on what was cutting edge in marketing for those years. So I was learning how to do my job on the internet. Like really,
Really.
like truly, right? Like we were building what was early days of like pay-per-click, SEO, social, right? Like, and I was always working, like if it was brand new, I landed in Seattle when like SEO was like this still very kind of like gray hat, white hat thing. And it's like all like, I don't know, some kind of voodoo magic that people were doing
Right.
behind a, but and
Yeah.
like, and so that was like I think part of what happened is that I got experience like when these things were just happening. I used to go I used to go to a meetup in Seattle called Social Media Club that met in person. Like
Yeah. A social media club. That's
a
great.
social media club, and we met in person, and people like hear that and they're just like, what are you even talking about, right? Like
That's
go to social
hilarious.
media Twitter and go to marketing Twitter and be done with it, right? So anyway, I think I was really early in a lot of these things, and whenever something new was emerging, that's what I wanted to work on. And if it was like not figured out yet, I was
So
like
you were
going and
you were
learning how to
learning
do
it.
it.
Yeah, you were there when it was landed. That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, and I that's also when I graduated school. I think that's part of it. Like I was a digital marketer early, like early, like pre Google. As like I was doing digital marketing. We were
Oh my
doing what
gosh,
used to be called database marketing. Like it was weird. That was like my job.
man.
I
Yeah,
know.
that's a huge booming business now. I mean, you were a trailblazer in a way. You were there at the front end of it.
I started early, yeah, and when I went to school, this was the stuff that was happening in agencies, and it was awesome.
That is pretty awesome. And
Yeah.
so when you're using this experience now, I mean, golly. I mean, you're with some of these startups now. Do you ever see some of these startups? You're like, man, I'd like to be a part of this one. This sounds pretty good.
Not anymore. I mean, I think the right one, the right role is out there somewhere,
Yeah.
but it would probably be in people or culture, not in marketing. Right? Like it would, it'd be different now.
You've done your marketing thing, you think?
I
Have
think
you
so.
scratched that
I,
itch?
I think so. I still love it, but I'm so behind. I'm so
Oh,
behind.
yeah.
I'm so behind. Like I am 10 years behind and I can't tell somebody how to get famous on TikTok. And so therefore I am useless.
That's a good point. That's a good point.
Really, seriously,
Yeah.
like I don't have the depth of knowledge that it requires now. Like it's so different and missing 10 years. And I shouldn't say that I couldn't do it because you can and you can definitely get current and those are not the absolutes of what's needed to do the job. But I do feel like there would be a significant investment to get where I would want to be
Yeah.
as a marketing leader.
No, you're right. You're absolutely right because it passes and it changes so quickly that I mean I could probably grab one of my kids to be my marketer and have a much better chance of having something really impactful that I
Yeah.
wouldn't understand but would probably do pretty well.
Yeah.
No, I think you're right though with the people and culture. If you're looking forward, let's kind of play look ahead. So we've had the last year and a half has overall I think people would say overall it's kind of sucked. I mean it's been a pretty bad kind of run. A lot of good things have come out of it because people work through it, and you know, you do what you have to do. But a year and a half out from now, looking ahead, there's going to be all kinds of different. There's going to be business ventures that come out of this dealing with people and with culture, especially like this whole remote thing. How do you build culture with a remote workforce, for instance? That is fix that, find that the key to that lock and unlock it. What do you think? I mean, looking ahead, what kind of things are you trying to get yourself involved in now so you're on the front end again?
And I think the thing that's been motivating to me for a long time is talking about mental health at work.
Yeah.
Right? Like that's been the thing for me. It's I don't know if you've seen any of this, but at one point I was doing a lot more speaking, and one of the things I would talk about is like my own experience with mental health. And I think there's so much opportunity there for folks to be recognized for their experience,
Hmm.
right? Like, what does it look like to create an inclusive culture where we've got folks who live with autism? What does it look like to create a culture where we create inclusivity for folks who have any kind of mental health diagnosis, right? Like, what does it look like? Like, what is that? How do we bring that level of inclusivity? And I don't know, this is not speaking from like, oh, I have solutions. It's just a question that sits in my mind that says, like, these are real aspects of people's lives. How do we allow for that? And not only allow for it, but like make it a part of our work experience.
I think that's a real good point because I don't think that before all of this that there was a real in corporate America the seriousness of how people really looked at wellness and some of those things. I don't I don't think it was there. I mean, I think it's something that some companies did because they knew it was a good thing to do. But I mean, I can just tell you, looking back like 2008 when we went through the recession and programs got cut, a lot of the kind of those fun things that we do, a lot of companies never really got them back. They just like
Yeah.
work it out, rub some dirt on it. It's like you'll
Yeah.
be okay. And I do see it now, just like you had some of these executives that would have never thought of allowing people to work from home, right? It's like that's out of sight. You're not working. They've accepted that now. They accept that's part of the reality. I think I've seen that now with wellness programs, including mental health, which used to be, I think there's a taboo to it. You don't want people to think you're damaged goods,
Hmm.
and especially as a leader, you're like, oh man, they're going to think I'm going to be a trickle down effect here because I don't have my own game in order. I think you're probably onto something there.
Do you watch Ted Lasso? Have you watched Ted
Yeah,
Lasso?
yeah, yeah,
It makes me think of Ted.
yeah. Oh wow, yes. Well, and
I'm not going to do
he
any
kind of had
spoilers. I don't want to do any spoilers for
a.
anybody who's listening.
Okay,
But I'm just saying.
I almost did. I almost did. I'm glad
Okay,
you stopped me.
but I'm just saying. if you don't watch Ted Lasso, watch Ted Lasso. Like I really hardly ever like make a like hard suggestion that everyone do what I do, but please, everybody watch Ted Lasso.
It is a very it's a sweet show. There's a sweetness to it that it's kind of nice. It's kind of a nice
Oh my
change,
gosh, it's so nice.
right? Yeah, it is. We need more of that. We need more Ted
Yeah,
Lassos. So,
exactly.
have you already watched the whole thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
So I like I wait until like I get the notification on my phone and then it's like on the calendar. Yeah,
There you
like
go.
it's new episode has dropped and then we're like, okay, we're watching it tonight, Friday night. It's our night.
Yeah, we're about
Yeah.
to go back to the other side of TV with Evil and all that stuff when Succession season 3 starts Sunday. That was another one of my favorites.
I've heard. I haven't watched it yet. I have a lot of
Oh,
catching up to do.
oh, it's so good. Yeah, I know it's ridiculous. At one point I think we ran out of shows. I mean, that's how bad it got because we got nothing else. We got nothing to watch because God forbid you watch, the news. It's like there's nothing good there. Let's watch something together that we can enjoy.
Did
Uh,
you watch Hacks? Have you ever watched that?
Hacks. Uh-uh.
Hacks. It's another definitely nowhere as feel good as Ted Lasso, but it's got some comedy in it. It's got some generational stuff happening in it, and I think based on what I've heard from
Yeah.
you and the way you understand generation, I think you'll appreciate it.
Okay.
Yeah,
HACKS. Hacks.
HACKS. Yeah, I think it's on HBO Max.
Oh,
Yeah,
good.
it's good.
Good.
Yeah, yeah,
It, I
it's
mean,
another one for you.
that's kind of the thing now, isn't it? To swap shows with people. You go, have you seen this one?
I think that's like one of my favorite things to do. So Succession, I'm actually writing down Succession right now.
Yes, you got to watch Succession, and I'm
Okay.
sure you've seen Schitt's Creek and
Obviously.
yes, I mean
Yeah.
some of the standards. Yeah, it's great.
Yeah.
We actually we went back and now we're watching Billions, which is just an absolute train wreck of a show, but it's fun.
I love that show. I love that show. I think there's new Billions too, either soon
Yeah,
or
there
now.
is.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
we're finally up to like season 4, I guess. And everybody told me first 3 seasons is really strong, then it starts jumping the shark because it gets real ridiculous, and it does. But it's so entertaining that I don't care right now. I just don't care.
I know. I know. I know. I get it. I for sure get it. It's still good. It's
It
still
is.
good. They're evil, but they're good. I like it. It's a good story.
So besides your business and your other side hustles, I know that you got a kiddo too, right?
Yeah.
And so you get to spend some good time with the family. That's one of the offshoots that's been real pleasant here.
Yeah, we've had we have figured out that our 4-year-old loves being in the car. And so he calls any and everything an adventure. So like where do I get to go on an adventure with, you two? Then like we're content. So we road trip a lot.
Oh, that's
Um
awesome.
all parts of, the state and we even, we'll take so we're outside of Seattle area and we'll take him into the city and just, all of that stuff like that seems like, oh, that's crazy. We're not going to drive all the way to city for a really good cup of coffee, but you bet your butt we actually are.
Yeah.
And it's awesome. Yeah, it's things that we get to do now that, we've got a little bit more time and things slow down and yeah, we get to enjoy it.
Yeah. You getting outside at all? I mean, because I know it's just beautiful there.
Yeah, we cannot be limited by weather here. We have to go outside. So it
Good.
doesn't matter like rain, shine, whatever. We go outside and I'm a trail runner. You were
Oh
asking
yeah.
earlier about like how I've kept myself sane. So I trail run at least once a week. And that's been, saving me really. It's like be in the forest and I am lucky enough to have a group of women that I run with who are badass. I hope that's okay to say. But really badass. And they are just an inspiration for me. These are women who do ultra marathons. I'm like a
Oh
3 to 5
God.
miler. Yeah. And these are like 50 milers, 100 milers.
Oh my
So
God.
really cool. Really cool. I run, I do my little 3 miles at 5 miles and then bail and they still
See you
run for,
later.
27 training miles or whatever.
That's
Yeah.
nuts. I don't.
Isn't it cool?
I know a couple people like that who are just crazy with that stuff. Yeah, we've become the people. Our entire neighborhood now. We probably know more people in the neighborhoods here and a couple over because everybody walks now, and we know everybody's dog. Everybody's dog. Everybody knows everybody's dog, and we've just we're the walkers. We're like this, I guarantee you, if we had kind of mapped it out, if we thought ahead, we could see like we might have walked across the country by now. And we've just walked so long and so far. And, getting our boys are at the age where if they didn't have to be here a lot more, they might not be. So it's kind of fun. We get them, we eat dinner as a family. So, there's some stuff that's not been a terrible output, but it will, I just want to see how we all come out of this about another year or two ahead, you know? Just
Do you
to
have
the
any do you have any predictions on what happens next? I know we're in such different parts of the country,
oh
right? I know.
yeah, what happens next? Golly, see, I we're in Texas and you're in Seattle. I mean, it could not be any more different climate, literally, politically, and everything else. I,
I know.
I mean, here, I think I mentioned the other day, come down here, take a vacation down here, and you can burn your mask and just walk around for a while. And it's well, not in Austin. There's pockets, of course, but here in the Dallas Fort Worth area, it's pretty standard fare. It's just yeah. What next? I don't, God, I don't know. I don't know. I shudder to think because there's so much. Unfortunately for all of us, the provision of information by the people who are supposed to provide it has gotten so polluted with bias and slant and agenda, both sides, that it's crap. Everything they tell us, I pretty much anything I hear that's on any kind of news source now, I put it through a filter that okay, I'm going in assuming it's crap, whatever they're telling me,
Yeah.
and the whole world is Twitter now. It's like, so, so I'm gonna watch hacks and I'm gonna watch shows like that in Silicon Valley and things that I don't have to,
Yeah.
worry about. Yeah, I don't know.
I
It's
know.
I can tell you I do predict that these mandates are going where people are going to get fired. I think that's going to blow up in the administration's face. It's a terrible idea. So we'll see. I mean, we have two big airlines that are based here, and
Yeah.
boy, one Southwest Airlines, their pilots are not having it, and so it's going to be interesting. There's a lot of angst over that, and I'm particularly peeved by it because I know I'm in a healthcare company. We do have nurses and doctors that were frontliners and worked through the worst time any of us have ever seen in our lifetimes, and now some of them may have to walk off the job. That just doesn't seem very. That just doesn't seem fair. So,
Mm.
not a big fan of the mandates. We'll just say
Yeah.
that.
Okay. Okay.
Anyway, that's a prediction.
Yeah.
I think those will backfire.
Hmm. What do you think is going to happen for companies? So, like, what is a remote work a year from now? You're talking to experts about this all the time, and we've now turned the tables, and Jen is now interviewing. No, but I really, you have. I know your mind is at work about
Oh man, it's
2022. If my prediction is we talk about mental health and we bring that and inclusionary practices in organizations.
I think, I mean, I look constantly for, I want the perfect tools to engage my employees when I'm never probably going to meet them. I mean, it is something that we're now in people's homes. We know we're literally talking to them while they're in their homes. We might even see their dogs and their families walk in the background.
Hmm.
Um, and it won't be one thing. You're going to have to find like this whole collection of things that reach out and engage your people and to engage your employees and to develop a culture when no one's actually in a physical building because I think that genie's out of the bottle. There'll be some companies that bring people back, but you better have a real strong why if you're going to do that because I think we've
Hmm.
proven 75% of the jobs can absolutely be done remote.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm still trying to work on. I mean, literally every day I'm either trying to get a demo or finding a tool that I think 25% of my employees might really love, and then I got to find something else for some of the other ones. And some people are stimulated by we have a trivia game. Some people want to do like competitions or walkathons or whatever, just anything,
Yeah.
and still try to tie it to your overall values as a company. But we gotta have something to lighten up the mood, man. Keep people happy, fun, something.
Right.
So, yeah,
And connected. I
connected.
think it's
Yes,
because
very well said.
I think that's the that still puzzles me, you know, and I know it is on leaders' minds. It's something we talk about. How do we keep folks not just connected in the sense that like, oh, we're online, like that has nothing, it's not the connection I mean, but like how do we really keep folks talking to one another and feeling that like belonging that we once felt, and that camaraderie that we once felt from other humans.
Well, it's kind of cool in one way because I mean, people are amazing, and all these young minds out there. I talked to another young entrepreneur today. I mean, there's so many of them now, and they're growing up in an environment so much different than we did. Where I think most of them decide entrepreneur is the way to go right out of school. I mean, they're just diving right in, and real bright people. They're going to come up with something, and just to see some of the products that are coming out. There's going to be a lot of them that crash and burn, but there's going to be some that absolutely change everything, and so that part's exciting. I think I have a lot of faith in the brains of people who are, this generation. What are they, Zoomers or Gen Z? I forget what they call them now, but whatever. They're they're gonna they're fix stuff. They're gonna make a lot of headway for some things that we need.
I love that optimism. I'm sure you're shocked to hear that I love that optimism.
And I'm sure you're shocked to know I'm actually an optimist. A lot of people think I'm a pessimist. I'm not.
I could
I'm
see
actually
it.
an optimist. Okay, well that's good.
I could see
Yeah,
it.
it's just there's a lot there's a lot of good out there still, and I think this will stimulate a lot of people to get their ideas going a lot sooner than they might have otherwise. So try to find, if motivation is the key, motivation and hard work and inspiration, if that's the key to being successful, there's no lack of it right now because
Yeah.
nobody wants to stay like it is. That's one thing I think we all agree is that this kind of sucks. So let's fix it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Agreed. Well said.
Well, you think, is that a good ender? Is that a good way to end this conversation today?
I
We've
think
had our
so. Also,
predictions.
also just an immense gratitude. Thank you.
Aw, you're
Yeah,
great.
thank you.
I'm glad we got the chance to connect because I think, and again, we just know each other a little bit, but what I know is really impressive, and I think we need more people with that positive outlook like you do, and you're funny, and people ought to look up some of your information because you are kind of a goofball. That didn't come out, but you kind of are a
What?
goofball.
Yeah, no, that's true.
Yeah.
That's
So,
true.
and I'm glad you enjoyed our how to avoid Corona divorce video because we did a few of those.
I loved it. I loved it. And your kids are patient. Your kids are patient. That's when I was like, wow, there's some parenting going on here because those kids are patient and they're funny. That was really
they're
awesome.
they're funny boys. They're good kids. So yeah,
Yeah.
they enjoy, it was like they had nothing else to do, so why not be patient? They were like they get school done in an hour. This was back when it was all virtual and they hadn't really figured it out yet. So now it's a little bit different. They're actually back at see our kids are back at school. There's no masks or anything either. So again,
Wow.
just different places, right?
Oh,
So
I'm going to wave from over here in Seattle where we're doing a whole different life.
oh
Oh my
man,
gosh.
I hate it for kids more than anything. I really do. So all right, Jen. Well, let's connect again, and thank you so much. You're a fantastic guest, and I wish you all the luck in the world. And let's stay connected.
I love it. Thank you
Remember,
so much.
it's the connection. That's what's important.
I love it's agreed. Agreed.
All right, peace out.
Take care.
All right, bye bye.
Bye.